Hi, this is Biz. This is a complete beginner's guide to model importing for Smash Brothers Melee. There's a couple tools we're going to need, and this is going to be a crash course. So if you want to skip anything, just check the timestamps. So a couple tools that we need is we need Blender. This is your modeling package. We need mExtool from Team Machina. This lets you edit Melee's character select. It lets you edit a bunch of attributes. It lets you export data. Basically, it's your all-around Melee tool. You're going to need HSD Raw Viewer. It's a file editing tool for files that you're going to export from Melee. It lets you view animations and models, export them, import them, and stuff. We're going to need Blender Source Tools, which is actually a tool for importing and exporting Valve's source format files, because it's actually a format we're going to be working with. And you're going to need Dolphin for testing. It just makes it easier rather than using an actual console. Of course, you're going to need a copy of Melee as well, and I'm not going to link to that, so you'll have to find that yourself. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get mExtool open, and we're going to go to File, Open ISO. So now you're going to target your copy of Melee. Mine is here. Once you open Melee, you want to say yes, install mech system. Give it a second. You can see it loads up. Then you go to File, Export as, File System. When you export the file system, what it's basically going to do is dump the entire ISO's contents so you have faster access to every individual file. That way we don't have to keep rebuilding ISOs over and over as well. Makes it easier to work with. And you can boot straight from it too, so you don't have to build an ISO in the end. Now, I've already exported a file system, so I won't be doing that. But for now, we are done with mExtool. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our file system, and we're going to go to the files, and we're going to find the fighter. So we're going to be importing Lucas over Ness. You can import anyone you want over anyone you want. They don't have to be the same size, but it helps the animations match up, and Lucas is an obvious choice. So we're going to find Ness, and I believe Ness is PLNE or PLNS or something. All the fighters start with PL for player. So Ness is PLNS, which is the base file. We have NSAJ, which is the animations. BU is blue. Then we have another animation file. Green, NR for neutral, and yellow. So we're going to do Lucas over neutral because we're going to give him his own costume slot. So all you have to do is copy and paste it and then name it to something else. So instead of NR, I'll do LC for Lucas. And now we're going to open up that file with HSD raw. So we're going to go to File. Actually, we can just drag it in. So we'll go ahead and drag it in. Double click your share joint here and you can see Ness. You can also see kind of clipping into him is his low poly model. And we're going to spit all of this out. So we're going to go ahead and go to File, Export Model to File. And we're actually going to export this twice. So first, we're going to do the DAE. So we'll just do Ness DAE. Sure, you don't have to change anything, not even the Blender export mode. We're not going to do that. So confirm. Then File, Export again, and we're going to export to Studio Model, which is actually the Valve format. Let's do Ness source, doesn't matter what the name is. Don't change any settings again. And now we are going to jump into Blender. So we're going to go ahead and set up Ness for the first time. Part of this is unnecessary, but if you want to work on making a costume for Ness rather than completely overwriting Ness, part of this is necessary. You'll see what I mean. So first we're going to go to Edit, Preferences, and we're going to install the add-on. So the source add-on comes in a zip file, and you don't want to extract it. If you've never used Blender before, basically how it works is all of your add-ons are in zips, and it extracts itself once you click Install and click the zip. So once you install it, it'll pop up. You'll see it looks like this. You check it off, and then you just make sure it's saved, and then you're done with that. Now you can go to File, Import, Source Engine, and we're going to pull up the files that we just exported. Let's go over to our folder here, and we'll click Ness source, and we don't have to do anything. So he comes in sideways, and it also makes a new collection. What a collection is basically a subfolder of stuff in your working environment. We don't need this camera. We don't need this light. And so now the first thing we're going to do is we will drop Ness's skeleton into the source collection. This will make sure that the skeleton and the mesh are combined. Now we're going to click the armature in object mode, and we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. So I'm going to click it. I'm going to press rotate. I'm going to hold control to snap it. And then in the top left, you can see it said 90 degrees. Okay, so now he's in the right orientation, and we're going to want to make sure that that's the default orientation. So we'll go to object, apply, and we'll apply the rotation. So now that is his original orientation. Now what we're going to do is we are going to delete the mesh because we do not need it. This is actually a combination of all the meshes, and it doesn't have any of the information for what textures go where. This is just how the source file format comes in. It's all garbled, messy. But the reason that we use the source format is because the rig comes in clean. The DAE format garbles the rig and we can't use it. So we're going to delete the mesh. We're going to go to File, Import, and this time we're going to import the DAE. So we'll go over to our folder, bring in our DAE. You don't have to click anything here, and you import it. So there's Ness, he's standing upright. And basically what we're going to do now is we have to actually separate Ness's mesh from his old rig. So what we're going to do is we will shut off the working collection. We will click the armature, and we will click all of Ness's pieces here, scroll all the way down, shift click, and in the viewport we will press Alt P for clear parent, and we're going to clear parent and keep transformation. Now he's unbound from his armature. So what we're going to do is we're going to click that armature and we're going to delete it. We don't need it anymore. Now we'll unify everything. We'll bring the stuff from the other collection into this collection. We don't need this collection. You can delete it if you want. So what we're going to do before we bind the mesh to the armature that we want to use is we have to actually clean out this other skeleton. The source file format, for some reason, brings in a bunch of bones that we aren't going to use that are named after the original objects. So all the original melee bones are named JOBJ and then a number, and all the other bones listed here are basically useless and we don't need them. So what we're going to do that is we're going to click the skeleton in object mode, and then we're going to go over to edit mode. You can also press tab to go to edit mode quickly, and we're going to click one of these bones, scroll all the way down, shift, click. Now we have all the bones selected. In the viewport, we're going to hit delete bones. Boom, we clean the skeleton. Now we can join this copy of Ness to this other armature. Really quickly, I'll explain that this works because this other Ness was rigged to bones that have the same name. So even though we got rid of the skeleton that the DAE came with, the data stays on the vertices that makes it look for certain bones. And both of these armatures are named the same thing, so it works. So we're going to click every part of Ness. Then we're going to scroll down. We're going to click the skeleton as the final thing using Control. And then we're going to do Control P and then set parent to with empty groups. These other things bind the weights automatically using some calculations. And right now we don't want to change anything about Ness because we're just restoring him for reference. So we're going to do empty groups. There'll be no changes, but you'll be able to see that the skeleton works. So in object mode, again, you can click part of the skeleton. We'll try to click through to the bones here. You can go to pose mode. You can click one of the bones, and then you can go to rotate or press E or whatever your keybind is, and you can actually move the arm around. So you can tell that it's bound and it's working. If you want to turn textures on to look at what you did, you can go up and to the right, and you can either turn on material shading, which looks crazy, or we can turn on the texture view. The reason that it looks wrong is simply because Melee uses different settings. than Blender is going to use. So some of the things come in flipped or upside down, and this is something that basically you have to change the settings for either in Blender or in HSDraw, and we're not really going to deal with it right now. That's something we'll deal with later. But we have a working copy of Ness, and that's good, and that means we can start working over Ness more easily. So we'll go ahead and just save the work that we've done so far. Let's step up into our Lucas. We'll just name it Lucas. It's fine. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we are going to actually pull in Lucas. So while there are ways to pull Lucas using Brawlbox from your Brawl files, the easiest way to get any model is honestly to use their website, the models resource, if the rips are good. This has basically anything you could look for, most part. If it's popular, it'll be here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to find Lucas, we're going to download this model, and we're going to get all these files. So for our case, what we're going to use is the DAE because it stores texture data. The OBJ does not do that, and we don't want to work with source files anymore. So we're going to get the DAE, and we're going to get all of his textures. We won't get the SMD file. Then we're going to pull it into a folder on its own so that it's all next to each other. And we're going to go ahead and import this object into our Blender. For ease of use, we'll make this other collection useful, and we'll import it into the other collection. So we'll go ahead and do import DAE. We'll get Lucas. Don't have to do any of that stuff. Import. There's Lucas. He's a little wonky, and there's different things that we're going to have to do to him, but he's all there. So we'll go ahead and go to Lucas's base armature, and we will rotate him up, and we'll rotate him around, and we will apply this rotation. However, he seems to be a little bit off, so let's just try to fix that as manually as we can. We'll check his rotation here, maybe zero it out. For some reason, 90 degrees just looks like it's not cutting it. No, that looks good. Okay. You want to make sure that he's lined up as much as he can with the original. If your character isn't the right size, it's not going to animate exactly as well as it could. So we'll bring him down a little bit. I'm pressing Z, X, and Y while I'm moving to snap to different directions. And for the most part, he's there. Lucas might be a little too big, so maybe we'll shrink him a little bit. Just kind of roughly eyeballing stuff at this point. And the arms are a little bit more back, but we really want him to line up as much as possible. So there's some manual editing that we might have to do, and that's fine. But what we're going to need to do is we're going to want to smooth him out. So here's what I'm doing. Basically, I'm smoothing him out by turning on the vertex menu in the top right that merges the vertices, and then I'm doing any operation to all the verts. So I'm doing Control A, I'm going into move mode, and I'm just tapping. That lets all the verts merge into each other. And then I'm also pressing space and typing in shade smooth, and that makes sure that all the verts that are touching are shaded smooth. You just want to do this so that the rendering looks correct in Engine. Anyway, now that Lucas is nice and smooth and merged together and stuff, we're going to detach him from his armature. So we're going to go ahead and click all of Lucas here. We're going to do Alt P, clear, and keep transformation. And now we're going to delete the armature. Okay, now that the armature is deleted, Lucas is a free man. It's not associated with anything. And we're going to clear the vertex data out because those old bones were not named the names of any of the bones we're going to be using. So we're going to have to do that for each object. So first we're going to go into the modifier properties, and we're going to delete the armature use. We're going to do this for every object. Now that we've gotten rid of all the modifiers, we're going to get rid of the vertex data. We're going to go to the vertex window, and we're going to go into edit mode, select all the verts, and we are going to delete all groups. You don't actually have to be in edit mode to do this. I just remembered. Delete all groups. Delete all groups. Delete all groups. Delete all groups. There's another method you can use where you rename all the bones to the names of the bones that are used in Melee, but this won't work for characters that have different rig setups. So I'm just going to show you the universal method that will work whether your character is just a copy of Ness or Thomas the Tank Engine 6 times arranged in the shape of a human. So delete all groups and delete all groups. So that should be everything. It is. Okay. Now what we are going to do is we are going to bind him to Ness's skeleton. So we'll go ahead and turn on the other collection. We will actually turn off all of Ness's body parts by separating them into a third collection. Just makes it easier to work with. So we will caret everything, make a new collection and say Ness. We will open this collection. We will take all of Ness's objects and we can go ahead and move them down. Okay. Now we can hide Ness, but keep the skeleton. Now we're going to bind all of Lucas's stuff to Ness's skeleton. So we're going to click everything that Lucas has. You can label them if you want. It doesn't really matter. And then the last thing we're going to click is the skeleton. Control P. Now you can either do automatic weights or you can do empty groups and paint it for yourself. If you do automatic weights, the painting is mostly done, but you're going to have to do cleanup and you have to make sure that certain bones are not used. Certain bones, like this root bone, could get weighed to the feet or the legs, but the root bone should never be used on any mesh. So if we use automatic weights, what we're going to have to do is Control P, automatic weights, and we're going to have to make sure that this root bone or any other bone is not used. Certain characters like Bowser have extra bones inside his body that are used for like the up B animation and stuff like that. And basically you have to go through the armature and make sure that these sorts of bones aren't getting used on the mesh. Otherwise, other animations will get messed up because they're not using those to animate, so they'll stay still or whatever. Basically, it's different for every character, and you kind of just have to figure it out on your own. A way that you can be sure what bones are actually used is you can look at the original mesh. So we can turn on Ness here. We can click his foot. We can press Tab for object mode or edit mode. Click Avert. Go to Item. And then you can see JOBJ52 is being used. What that means is the bone named 52 is being 100% weighed to this vert. And then you can guess that that must be the foot or the toe. So you can see here, if we click the armature and go into edit mode and click the toe, if we can get it, you can see the toe is 52. You can see that the foot or the ankle is 50. And so that means that when we look at the weight somewhere in the middle here, it might be 50-50. We can see that they use 51. We can see that they use 50 maybe only for the very ankle. But it helps you figure out what's what. You can either click the armature and hit edit and look at the bone, or you can click the vert in the area and edit and look at the item data. But all we want to do is just make sure that Lucas doesn't use the root bone, because most of Ness's bones do get used, except the backpack won't be used on Lucas. So I'm going to show you how to clear out pretty easily that sort of data. So a really easy way to clear out that sort of data is you can go ahead and click the model that you're concerned with. So we'll click Lucas here. We'll go into edit mode. We'll select again every single vert with Control A. And then we need to find the bone in this vertex group list that we don't want. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out what these bones are. So it looks like having trouble clicking it because it's so small. And when you're having trouble clicking stuff, you can actually change the bone type. The bone type is in the viewport display, and you can change it from stick to envelope. Envelope makes it easier to have giant things to click. So we can see here that JOBJ0 is the root, which is obvious. You can tell just from the list that 0 is the root. We can see that 1 might not be used. We can see that 61 is used for something that I can't identify. We can see that his pelvis, which is really the root animation bone, is 4. So we just don't want 1 and 60, or we don't want 0 and 61. We also don't want his backpack, so we'll click that. That's 46, it looks like. Yep, that's just 46. So 0, 61, and 46. So we'll make sure that those aren't present on any of the meshes. At this point, we'll just Control A on his body. We'll find 0. We'll click it, and then we'll set the weight to 0 and assign, or 1 and remove. So we'll do 1 and remove. It's cleaner. We'll do this also for 61. We'll remove it. And we'll do this for the backpack, which I forgot. It is 46. So we'll remove 46. 46, remove, good. We'll also do this for anything else we think might have bleed over. So his head might have some bleed over with 46. So we'll get to 46 again, remove. His hair might have some bleed over with 46. So we'll click that, remove, done. Okay, now what you have to make sure is, because you remove data from the vertices, they might not be normalized. And this is really important for Melee. What normalization is it makes sure that on any individual vertice, the data actually adds up to 1. So you can see here that the auto weight has a whole bunch of junk in it, right? And all this junk is meant to add up to 1. The issue is that it doesn't add up to 1. There's no way that this adds up to 1. Not only that, but there's a bunch of data here that's barely used, like JOBJ3 and JOBJ2. They're barely used. And Melee doesn't like that either. So we're going to do a couple operations on the mesh so that Melee is more happy with us. The first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to do a normalize operation. We're going to normalize all, and we're going to bring up this pop-up down here and make sure lock active is off. So now at this point, all of these bones are going to be weighed to these vertices such that the weight adds up to 1, which is necessary. So now we can see the values might have changed a little bit, and they should add up to 1. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to limit the weights on these bones to 2 bones per vert. Melee doesn't like it if each vert is getting information from more than 2 bones at a time. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in limit. I'm opening the search with spacebar. Just type in limit, bring up limit total, and then we're going to change the limit to 2. Now that we've limited all the verts to 2, you can look in and see that the list is much shorter. And now we actually have to normalize it again because it's not adding up to 1. So normalize all, do it again. Now we can check, and there we can see it adds up to 1. This is pretty quick and dirty, and the rig might not be the best thing in the world, but we can see also, if we want to manually fix things, how the weights are actually distributed. So what we can do to do that is we can be in edit mode. We can click up here, and we can click vertex group weights. Then we can go into wireframe mode to get an easier look, and we can shut off the see-through mode. And we can actually click any of the bones that are used here. So we'll click 47. So we can see 47 is weighed kind of a middling amount. It goes between blue and red with green in the middle. So we can see that 47 is a middling amount, and I'm guessing 53 is as well. So 53 is as well, sure. And this might be okay, it might be crap. We can actually test that. So we can click the armature in object mode, we can go into pose mode, and then we can actually bend his leg. So his leg looks rigged okay. We can move his thigh. His thigh looks rigged. It could use some work, but we're not here to make something perfect. We're here to just make something work. Same thing with his arm. It's not great. Could use some work, but we're not going to clean it up right now. That's like a different video. But Ness is now rigged to, or Lucas is now rigged to Ness's armature. So as best as we know, we should be able to get this in the game now. Ness, I don't believe, came in with his baseball bat. At least I don't think so. Nope, he didn't come in with his baseball bat. So we're not actually going to add this stick bat either. So we're going to delete that, and we're going to shut off Ness, and we're going to bring Lucas's meshes into the collection with the skeleton. Now that we've done that and everything seems all pointed together, we are going to go to object mode. We're going to select everything. We're going to go to File, Export, and we're actually going to export as an FBX. You can export the FBX next to where all the textures are to hopefully have them link up when you import it into HSD raw. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to export it into the same location. And we're going to do selected objects. We're going to do armature and mesh by holding shift. We're going to bring the scale down to 0.01 because Blender's scale does not match Melee's scale. We don't need to bake animation. We don't have any. And an important thing is in armature, we don't want to add leaf bones. Leaf bones get stacked on the end of armatures so that it can be used in different tools and software. But it alters the amount of bones that are in the file, and it's going to mess up things for Melee. So we don't want them. We don't want leaf bones. And we're just going to go ahead and export as lucas.fbx. Now that we've done that, we can open up HSD raw again. So we'll go ahead and open a new instance. We can open up the Lucas file that we were working with. Actually, it might still be open. It is still open. So we'll go to File, Import Model from File. And we'll go into Lucas's folder, get the FBX file, and hit OK. We're not going to change any of these unless we absolutely have to. So we're not going to change any of them. We're going to let it import. And most likely we're going to see something's messed up and we're going to diagnose it. So give it a second. And you can see that it looks like the rig for the head is completely melting and none of the textures assigned correctly for whatever reason. So I'm going to show you how to fix that because this is a really common problem. So first, I can tell you the reason that the textures didn't assign correctly is the same reason why the Melee characters get imported with so many different pieces. You can see that Ness's hat is different from the rim of his hat, is different from his arm, is different from his hand, is different from his cuff, etc., etc. So the thing is in Melee, materials cannot be used in multiples on one mesh. So here you can see that Lucas's wear is good on his arms. Oh, maybe this isn't a problem we have to deal with. But in other meshes, it will be a problem. So if you see that the shirt is different than the arms, is different than the pants, stuff like that, what you have to do is you actually have to separate those pieces out so that they can use that material. If you did need to do that, what you have to do is you have to go into edit mode, click on the piece you want to get rid of or to separate, search for separate, spell it correctly, and then separate by selection. This basically makes it completely separate, but we don't want to do that. But we do want to fix the melting problem on his head. So we'll go ahead and look at what part of his head appears to be melting. It's kind of the top middle area. And we're going to want to diagnose that. So we'll click his head, click the top of his head, and we can see that a big issue we had is we did not actually normalize or limit any of the verts on the rest of his body. You have to make sure to do this or you can get all sorts of weird melting issues. So we'll just do that really quickly. We will limit these to 2. We will normalize the outcome again. Good. We'll do that on his eyes as well. Limit of 2. Normalize again. Shirt. And if there's any other piece that I didn't do it to, got to do it on the head as well. Limit to 2 and normalize. So now that we've limited and normalized everything, now the export should work correctly. So we'll do it again. Select everything, export, same settings, export. Now we'll bring in the import, continue. And now he looks mostly there. I mean, the mesh is correct, is sort of the deal. So we can see his textures are still pretty messed up. So we're gonna have to probably fiddle with a couple of the settings. We saw it import weird, basically. This is the result on the flip side. So we'll do them one at a time. We'll just shut off everything and we'll look at his hair. On his hair, we will click it, we'll go to material, edit, and then we kind of just have to look at the properties in the window here. So we could either import with things flipped or we could change filtering information here. So first we'll start with trying to flip everything. So we'll just import everything again. Go to File, Import Model, go to Lucas, import Lucas, and we will flip the UVs. True. Okay. This is the first thing that you can try. It's not always the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do, so we don't have any other work. However, something that you can do is you can click one of the objects. You can go to File, Edit, and you can actually edit the information in here. Sometimes the wrap type's wrong. Rarely the filter can be wrong. There's just like a whole bunch of stuff you can do. If you have spec maps, if you know what those are, shadow maps, all that other sort of stuff. It also goes in here and gets sort of linked up, but he came in mostly correct. We can see that there's some normal data issues, and we can clean those up too. I'll show you how to do that, because it's really common to have that sort of issue happen with anything that's cut out. So usually eyes are the main thing that we use that's cut out. Sometimes mouths can be cut out of the face. So it's sort of a complicated trick, but I'll show you how to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our modeling software, and we're actually going to view the normal information. So in HSD raw, if you can't tell if something's wrong, you can go to DOBJ mode, or you can go to render mode and go to normals. You can see that the normals aren't lining up here, and it should be smooth and completely, you shouldn't be able to tell if this mask is here, basically. So what we're going to do is we are going to go into our modeling software. We don't need textures. I don't want to see them. We're going to click one of the eye or the face. You should start with the face as the base. And we're going to go into edit mode. Now in edit mode, we're going to shut off our weight stuff, and we're going to turn on our vertex stuff. And we can turn it up to see the rods. Basically what you're seeing is light bounce information, kind of mathematically represented as poles. And basically we want these purple poles to match these purple poles. So if you look pretty closely at this one on the edge here, that's completely lined up. You can see here, it's pointing to the right. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy that data over. It's kind of tedious, but luckily most of our meshes are low poly enough that we can do it manually. It would be better with a tool, but I don't have one. So we're going to click this object, this vert. We're going to do Alt-N. This brings up the normals data, and we're going to copy the vector. Now we're going to go over to the face mask. We're going to click the vert that matches, and we're going to paste the vector. We're going to do this all the way around the head. Okay, so now that you can see we have all these purple poles done, and they all match the poles on the outside, we can re-export Lucas. Oh, his ear actually isn't smoothed out. Let's. Oh, it's not supposed to be. It already has data for sharpening, so we'll leave it on there for now. We will go to File, Export. We'll spit out another Lucas. Just make sure that everything's selected the same as it was, and we will go back into HSD raw, and we will do the import again. We should flip the UVs because they were wrong before. And we should see on the second import that the face should look smooth if I clicked every vert and copied every vert correctly. So we can see that it is completely merged in. It looks correct. And we are ready to try to put this in the game, almost. It's really important in Melee that a couple things always match. We have 4 objects here, and Ness has a lot more than 4 objects, and they have to match. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up another copy of HSD raw, and we're going to compare. So we'll go ahead and find we'll find Ness's original costume that we copied from. That is PL NS NR for neutral, and we're going to open that up. We're going to open the joint up. We're in the objects. So the objects aren't in any particular order, but there's a number on the left, and it starts with 0. So we're going to go to the bottom and see that there's 69 objects. Nice. And we got to make sure that this also has 69 objects with textures. Luckily, we can do this really easily. They thought about this. You can do add dummy object, and we can make sure that we add 66 because we have 3 already in the thing, so 66. And they need dummy textures. We'll set that to true. Now the number should be the same, 69. Okay, nice. Just check again. There he is. He looks right. He won't animate perfectly because our rig was not perfect. We didn't clean it up at all, and that's not part of this video. But he should work in the game. The only thing you won't see is he won't blink and he won't have a low poly model. That'll be a separate video. Those things aren't necessary for just getting something to work. So we're going to go to File, Save. Lucas is completely saved now. We'll go to mExtool again, and what we're going to do in mExtool is we're going to add this as a costume. So we're going to go to Open File System this time, and we're going to target that file system that we made earlier. And we're going to go and make sure that it is what is in the folder. Hit OK. It'll open it up. Fighters, Ness, costumes. Now what we're going to do here is we are going to copy the costume. We're not going to do add from file. We're going to do clone costume. And we're going to rename this to the name of our file. So instead of NR, we did LC for Lucas, I believe. Yep, Lucas. And you can change the picture if you want, and you can change the stock icon. So we'll change the stock, or we won't change the stock icon, but we'll change the picture to something. So let's go into Lucas's files and just make it anything, just so that we can tell we're selecting it. So how about this leaf? Sure, make it a leaf. Okay, it's a leaf. And we'll do File, Save. Now we are saving our file system, and everything should be fine. What we're going to do now is we're going to just go ahead and open Dolphin. I recommend using the newest version of Dolphin just for compatibility reasons. This doesn't always work with Slippy depending on what sort of mods you're working with. So just using a clean copy of Dolphin is always good. We're going to go to File, Open, and we're actually going to target our file system. So you can see here we can go into our file system, we can go into the system file, and there's a main DOL. This will just boot it like a regular game. I don't have any codes on, so we're going to have to go through the menu here a little bit. Or I do have codes on and whatever. Ness, the leaf, Ganondorf. You can ignore this error. This error is due to codes I have on. You should not be getting this error. So here we can see we have a janky Lucas that his rig is shit and we need to clean it up, but he works. He's over Ness. In another video, I'll be going over how to clean up your rig, as well as do some videos on the low poly and blinking stuff, and some general material information to make the lighting match melee more. That's it for now. Thanks, and somebody go make Shrek.